Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Green Party series out of Illinois. I am your host, David Rich, with my co-host, Calvin Tomashko. Calvin, how are you?
Hey, doing great, man. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good one. I'm really excited about this. We have on tonight, we have Andrew Silva, who is the Executive Director of FairVote, Illinois. And also another member of the Green Party, we have Chris Blankenhorn, who is the Secretary of the Illinois Green Party. So excellent having both of you on tonight. Very, very important topic to discuss. I know I've had personal experience with this last year when I was still a member of the Libertarian Party. And before I moved over to the Green Party, I was running as a candidate. And the Green Party and the Libertarian Party got together, sued the state. There's a whole background about history here. It's very interesting stuff and very important, including ballot access for third parties and especially ranked choice voting as well. Changing the standards, the methods by which we vote in this country is a very important thing. In my personal estimation, this binary thing, your vote either is your guy wins or your guy loses, is not really a good way to go. You extend it out to a greater length of options, and your vote actually counts. So that's like a very, very brief summary of what's going on about what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to hand the baton over to Calvin, and take it away.
Yeah, I'd like to start tonight thinking about what ranked choice voting is not. So in essence, what are we using right now and why is this inadequate? I've been watching too much Richard Wolff lately. He loves to define things by what they are not. So what is ranked choice voting, seeking a majority? What is that not? And what are we currently using right now?
Yeah. So I'm guessing that's addressed towards me.
Let's go Andrew first, and then Chris, if you have anything to add right after Andrew.
Yeah. So the way we vote today is called plurality voting, and whoever gets more votes than any other candidate wins. It does not require that the winning candidate gets a majority of the votes. And so oftentimes when there's more than two candidates running, a candidate will win with less than 50% of the vote. And what that, I'll expand a little bit further because we're seeing a lot of issues with politics today, which is the biggest understatement probably of the night, which is we're so polarized. There's a complete distrust that the government has their best interest in mind. And what we're seeing is that the way we vote drives us to this two-party system that keeps adding to that division. And because you don't need a majority of the vote, we see that we're people are told, hey, don't waste your vote for one of these two parties. They're the only ones who have a chance of winning. And that keeps us in this state and kind of keeps us very polarized and not so happy with the way our elections are run or our politics.
Yeah. Chris, do you have any thoughts on plurality voting?
The layman's way to talk about it is vote for who you want. Whoever gets the most votes wins. And people like it because it's simple, right? Because they think it's simpler. It was mentioned the founders, they said no two-party system. They didn't want a two-party system, but then they wrote the rules for a two-party system, which in part, in my opinion, goes back to the fact that we are now and always have been and were intended to be an oligarchy, right? They didn't want a multi-party system because that democratizes things, right? Our founders were the elites of their day. Right. They were the 1% of their day, and they wanted a system that would continue, that would, not only continue that power, but grow that power. It's like a lot of things. All men are created equal, except some of them are 3/5, right? It's the standard double talk that you get from our founders. And I think it's really important when we talk about democracy to understand, kind of like when we talk about capitalism, this isn't an aberration. This is the plan, right? This is what the rules were designed to do. And it's similar with capitalism. Like, this isn't an aberration. This is the design of capitalism, monopolization and exploitation of the masses. So, we were set up for this, right? We were set up for this, and now we're trying to deal with it. And one of the problems that we have is we're trying to deal with it, and the people who set us up for this are deified. right? You can't change things in the Constitution. The Constitution is a racist, sexist, classist document, right?
It's pretty bad.
I don't know about anyone else here, if you own your home that you're in, but 5 years ago I bought a house and I officially could have voted, right, for the first time in my life based on the original rules.
Right.
When it comes to polarization, I think, thinking back to that we created an oligarchic system, I think it's important to understand we have polarization of the right? We have two right-wing capitalist parties. The Democrats are categorically a right-wing party when you look at political theory, which is where my background is. They are a neoliberal capitalist party, though we are seeing kind of a break from neoliberalism right now. Trump spent a bunch of money, Biden's spending a bunch of money because they had to, because this is an FDR moment. We got to save capitalism. We have this polarization, but Chomsky liked to talk about that we have a great amount of discussion, but within a small area of allowed, discourse. And so we see this massive polarization of two liberal parties, true traditional capitalist liberal parties who believe in moderated capitalism to some degree. The Republicans aren't libertarians who believe that we should have child labor. They believe in a moderated form of capitalism. And even more than that, we are an imperialist and white supremacist nation by design, just fundamentally. And what do those things have to do with electoral politics? How do you think we reinforce it, right? If we want to change these core systems, these core things about our country that are just oppressive in nature, we have to change the way that we do politics. We have to change the way that we have elections. And right now, we're getting the government that we were set up to get.
Yeah, I think this is an amazing point. If you look at how the Senate, right now, to me, it's not a democratic body. It's not a one person, one vote, and then you're in the Senate, or else people's vote in California would count the same towards a senator than people's vote in South Dakota. But how it used to be set up was the House of Representatives members would vote for who goes to the Senate. So it was just another derivation away from the democracy of the people.
It was state legislatures.
It was state legislatures. And I think how the democracy set up, I say democracy in air quotes, because how the setup was before was almost like a democracy designed by kings. Like it was set up to grant essentially two major parties that would reward mostly their interests. And I love this new approach to democracy where we're trying to seek out majority support from the people, and then hopefully that creates some knock-on effects. Let's talk about like the gears, the mechanics of ranked choice voting, pull away from politics just a wee bit, because I want to make sure all of our listeners understand, okay, now we know what plurality is. Plurality is they win with the most, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they had above 50%, because if more than one entity or two entities run in a race, well, then they can be taking a portion of it, of the overall vote, and now it's just the biggest one wins, but that biggest one is always going to be twice as big as the others. Let's talk about the mechanics of ranked choice voting and how that's different. And I guess we'll go same order this time. I might flip it later, but let's go Andrew first, and then Chris, you can talk about it.
Sure. So the way you vote today, you go to the ballot box and you select a single candidate. With ranked choice voting, it's I like to say an upgrade to the way we vote, where instead of selecting a single candidate, you rank your candidates. So you put your first choice, second choice, third choice, all the way down the list, as many as you like, whatever your preference may be. And then when we count the votes, in order for a candidate to win, they need a majority of the vote. So we start by just counting all first place votes, our first choice votes. And if someone has more than 50% of the vote, the election's over, right? That's the end of it. If not, then we have an instant runoff, which is another name for ranked choice voting, where the last place candidate is eliminated, and anyone who voted for that candidate as their first choice, their vote goes to their second choice instead. And then we retally the votes. And same thing, if someone has 50% or more, we have a winner. And if not, then we repeat the process until we have someone with the majority of the vote. That's my nutshell version.
That's it. No, that's well said. No, that's right.
That's perfect. Chris, can care to expand or add any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. And the one of the major things I see lobbed is, well, that's complicated. But the explanation is very simple, right? Rank them. If you're in last, you get booted, and your number 2 gets put up, right? You don't lose your vote. Right. You don't just by virtue of being last, not get a voice anymore. Just be simply eliminated. You get to go up and potentially, shift the election further. And the reality is, you're not doing the math, right? I've the hardest ranked choice election I've ever tried to tabulate was an 8-person write-in for a seat.
Oh wow!
It was nuts, and we calculated it how kind of by hand, and then we went to a computer to check us, and we got the same answer, right? So it's we can have more moving parts in these things, right?
Yeah.
We can have an election system I love to point to is Venezuela. We talk about their elections aren't legitimate. That's because the people we support don't run because we tell them not to, right? Venezuela they know that we're going to call their election illegitimate, so they have built the model of a modern electoral system, nearly instant reporting, biometric, voter registration to vote. Every 54% of all voting machines are publicly audited. Every single party that participates has to sign off on said audits. The corruption that has been seen in the Venezuelan electoral system is candidates from both parties trying to bribe people at times. Right. But when it comes to the claims that we make, that the European allies make about Venezuela's election system, is because the opposition was going to lose, and we told them don't run. They didn't, and then we appointed Guaido, who never ran for anything. But they didn't go back to paper ballots, which can be tampered with, despite the way people talk about it. I've heard stories of Philly that make Chicago look like preschool, where they're literally taking stickers off of people's names and putting new stickers on and stuff with paper ballots. But so having a good election system, having a secure election system means a modern election system. It means we can have some moving parts. And one of the big things we need to address is right now these machines are owned by private companies. They should be controlled independently. They should be publicly owned and independently operated, and they should be auditable by the public. We can have a little bit more complex of an election system that delivers a much more representative government.
I love all of this
because we should be modernizing, right? It should be we should be using technology as a plus.
Right.
We do everything wrong, every single thing wrong when it comes.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So I'm enjoying all of this flavored perspective and other ways to address democracy, as well as auditing it, as well as being sure in the systems around it. I think that's really excellent. But you touched on a point there, Chris, where one, you're not going to be the one doing the tabulations, but those are pretty easy to follow along with at FairVote. Oh, and full disclosure, I am both Green Party member and a member of FairVote Illinois. I'm up on the board, so I'm up in there. I'm trying to help it move along and get it passed as well. But I wanted to talk about, you're not going to be tabulating it, but and it's easy to follow it once you see people who have counted it for you and put it in a nice bar graph for you. You can see round by round what's going on. We even have an app for that. Andrew, hit me with that app. I'm going to make you remember it on the spot. What's that app that we use, that website?
I'm not sure.
Oh, nice. All right, I'll put it up later.
What are you talking about?
I'll put it up later. But in terms of the process of voting, and we do have this phenomenon, however real it is, it shouldn't be as big of an issue as it is, I believe. But the phenomenon of voter apathy, how does it feel going to the polls for people that live in Maine, that live in Australia, that live in Ireland, all that use ranked choice voting? How does it show that they feel about it when they go to vote and participate in a way where it shows their preference? Let's start, Chris, if you know anything on this, and then go Andrew. I said I'd switch it up sometimes.
I'm not sure how it feels, but I imagine they like having a multi-party system, right? When you listen to mainstream politics, people like to talk about American voters as these, useless apathetics. But they're not apathetic, they're alienated. They have a system where we have two right-wing parties and neither one of them represents their interests, right? And they've gotten tired of going to the polls and participating in their own oppression. So they're not apathetic. They walked away. They said, I'm not shooting myself in the foot anymore. If you're going to shoot me in the foot, do it. But I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not pulling the trigger. When I used to work as a community organizer, we'd go in neighborhoods, and I was on this national campaign that was, very Democrat leaning. And it was in 2012, and it was all about, get your neighbor. We got to have them oppose Romney. And I'm working mostly all working class, mostly black neighborhoods. They're not voting Romney, but they're staying home.
Right.
Because Obama's been president. They have a Democratic city council person. They have a Democratic state house rep. They have a Democratic state senate rep. They have a Democratic complete control in Illinois. And their lot's gotten worse. Right? They've got a Democratic U.S. senator in Durban, and it's gotten worse. Voting for the Democrats hasn't gotten them anywhere. They aren't apathetic. They're alienated. They're tired of voting for people who hurt them. Right? And so I would imagine that it feels nice not to be in that situation, right?
At least it cares. At least it cares, yeah.
I go to the polls on, I have turned in blank ballots because there was no one who represented my values. But if the machine got very mad at me when I tried to, are you sure it's blank? I had to confirm 3 or 4 times. But yes, I wanted to undervote every single race. Like, I wanted to participate and to express my dissatisfaction in the choices I had. So, I don't have any direct feedback from people in these places that have ranked choice voting, but I imagine it feels great. And at least when you talk globally, like Australia, we're seeing a multi-party system grow out of it, right? And I'm sure later on we can get into the, some of my critiques on, is that going to happen in May? Is ranked choice voting the only step in reaching that? Because I think it's not.
I look forward to it. I've been enjoying.
No matter what, even if we keep first past the post and ranked choice voting, just to be able to vote for someone else, gotta feel good.
Gotta feel good. All right, Andrew, your thoughts on being able to show your preference, and then also in the current bill in Illinois, there is the ability to leave people off. So you can, even on top of ranking your preference for candidates you care about, you can leave off ones that you feel didn't fit the bill at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll start with places that use ranked choice voting. We're seeing that exit polling, people are just happier with the results. So more positive experience, more approval for the method. They're also exit polling overwhelmingly is showing that people are saying it's easy to use, which is great. And we touched on Australia, and from Australia in particular, I've got lots of feedback about even if your first choice doesn't win, stating that preference is important, because you see those results. We see that whatever the party may be, receive 10% of the first round vote or 12%, and seeing it go up, and it allows a candidate to bring an important issue that's important to voters to the table and rally some support behind them, and then that gets visibility. And so even if they don't win, by stating your preference, it's a win for the voters. As far as the Calvin mentioned the bill in Illinois and many other places that use ranked choice voting, but particularly one in Illinois, it does not require you to rank all your choices. So if you want to, you could say, I'm going to vote the same way I do today, say just one candidate. If it's not, my candidate, then I don't care who wins. And that's fine. Or you could say, I'm going to rank the top 3, and after that, I have no preference. And that's really what you're saying when you're not ranking, the full list of candidates. You're saying that after this first choice or second choice, or however many you rank, I have no preference anymore. I'm abstaining for a vote, or I just dislike this person so much. There's no way I can't on moral grounds fill in a box next to their name. That's fine too, right? You don't have to rank them.
Yeah. And then Chris, you had one more thing to add, and then I think David has a question after that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that segues really well. I am a 100% against forcing people to rank all choices. That could lead my vote being applied to a Nazi. It can happen, right? It could 100% happen, and that shouldn't be. I shouldn't lose that agency to say absolutely not. I don't support you. When I engage in ranked choice voting, I don't rank everyone most of the time. If I don't approve of you, I don't rank you. If I don't think you should hold the position, I don't rank you. But that brings me to the one thing I forgot to talk about, and that is all ranked choice voting bills should have a none of the above option.
Yeah, I love
if
that.
It wins, there's a new election, and no one who ran before gets to run again. It's a special election, a snap election. I will say we have them internally in the Green Party. Some of my proudest moments have been causing people to lose to none of the above, right? That was the organizing work we could do. We couldn't beat them in a one-on-one race, but we could beat them in we need a new election with neither. And it's a lot of fun to organize those none of the above campaigns. And, there would be a lot of times for third parties, especially if we don't address things like ballot access, that would be our campaign, right? If we didn't win our lawsuit and Howie wasn't on the ballot and Illinois had ranked choice voting in 2020, the Illinois Green Party would have been wholly behind none of the above. Don't vote for a war criminal. Don't vote for an accused rapist, right? Don't vote for a white supremacist, because all of those words describe both of the major party candidates. Right. So if that was the situation in the hypothetical, the Illinois Green Party would probably be running a stronger none of the above campaign than we even see coordinated behind a presidential candidate, because it catches a much wider group of people. And so I think none of the above it's a really important part to have in there, because it allows the voters to say none of these people, right? Because when you're ranking, you still get to the point where you're probably ranking people you don't actually want to vote for. And none of the above allows you can even say, here's my number 1, here's none of the above, and then rank the people behind it, right?
Interesting.
I'm a big fan of none of the above. If for nothing else, makes for fun politics.
I actually had 2 questions that aren't directly related, but the first one is, speaking of a none of the above option, Chris, could you have a write-in option as well? Because a lot of offices have write-in options. That would be okay. Okay. And the second question is, have you considered obviously, nowadays, one of the amongst many other problems with American political elections is how expensive campaigning has become. It's one of the economic challenges for third-party members as well, because you have the rich elites going to the 2 parties to get elected, right? Because they can afford to, and they have the rich friends that will donate and blah 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 blah. I don't know I know a lot of libertarians. I know a lot of Green Party members. I don't know any of them that are rich. Maybe they are, but I don't go around and ask them for what they make a year. But do you think that itself, the expense of the high cost of campaigning, would be an inhibition, an obstacle, some sort of deterrent of ranked voting? Andrew, you go ahead.
Well, I think, I separate campaign finance reform type work from ranked choice voting, just because we treat them separate. It's definitely a problem, right? So there's definitely an issue where dollars help get people or elected. Right. So as far as how that plays out in a ranked choice voting election, ranked choice voting may help mitigate it ever so slightly, but it's not going to eliminate that problem, right? So if the funding's going to the two major parties, they're probably going to be the two that are the favorites. What it would do, though, is it still would allow other candidates to run, and for me as a voter to still say, hey, I support, the Green Party candidate number one and whoever number two. And in that case, as we see, maybe not this election, but the next election or the one after that, those numbers grow when people say, wait a second, there's no reason this is not a viable candidate. It's just not quite as quickly as we want change sometimes, but hopefully it can help mitigate some of that by having ranked choice voting.
All right.
Yeah, and I'll add to that the case of AOC. She's not everyone's hero, I know that, but I know that she was outspent by her opponent by magnitudes and was still able to pull it off, and that was during a Democratic primary. But I believe with ranked choice voting and people being able to freely vote their heart, that's one way I view ranked choice voting, is you can vote your heart freely and you can put up backup choices as desired. I think with people being able to vote their heart and go towards candidates with the issues that they align with the most, you're going to see many, many more instances where a candidate wins, resonating with the people with the best platform, way more than currently. Currently, I think there's too much of a fear-mongering splitting effect, and I want to highlight here that it is very important that when people talk about ranked choice voting, that it is getting rid of this systemic fear-based splitting effect. It is not not to say that there are spoiler parties. I think there are not spoiler parties. There are not spoiler candidates. I think every candidate and party is coming to the front with a legitimate claim to trying to offer something better for the people. I think it is a plurality designed by King's system that leads us down that path where people feel fearful. And I think ranked choice voting gets rid of that fear-based belief and lets you vote your heart. And I really like that part. And I jumped in. Chris, you didn't get a chance to respond to the campaign finance. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes down to it, ranked choice voting is a voting process. It's a voting system, right? It doesn't fundamentally change really any other part of our electoral system. And that's one of the, things that I push the hardest, is that I'm really, really concerned that ranked choice voting is being pushed in a bubble. It's being pushed alone. And I frankly don't trust a lot of the people who are pushing it that way. Because when it comes time to do ballot access, when it comes time to do proportional representation, start talking about real change, when it comes time to talk about campaign finance reform seriously, I don't think a good number of the people who are pushing ranked choice voting and saying we'll come there next are going to be there for that fight. And I also think ranked choice voting is such a big change to the process of our voting, even though it doesn't change really anything necessarily else about our electoral system, that it's going to be one of those, well, we just gave you ranked choice voting. What are you talking about this? Why are you talking about multi-member districts and proportional representation? No. This is a once in a generation type of reform. And then I guess the hope is that it spurs the reforms that gets the rest, but I don't know how it does without addressing those things first. So I think we need a much, much more, comprehensive package. We need to be going omni. I'm generally against omnibus, but this is one of those things where we are so broken, we can't bandage it. We can't put a veneer of legitimacy on this wholly illegitimate system. And when it comes down to it, voting systems don't win elections. Organizing does. Campaigning does. Raising money does. The work does. So getting on the ballot and having your name out there is really important. It's essential to winning, but it's not how you win, right? It's almost a requirement for winning. Write-ins don't win. They rarely win. So, having your name on the ballot and being able to rank more than one person, and having your name on the ballot, so ballot access is, number one, essential to win. And two, when you get to ranked choice voting, it greatly increases the likelihood of said win, right? But fundamentally, these things don't change how our election systems work. They're technical processes that happen within the system, and they can be very good changes. When it comes to spoiler, a lot of Greens don't like my take on this, but I'm here to spoil because I'm here to win, right? I'm here to elect socialists into office. And if you're a neoliberal Democrat or a conservative Republican, that's really going to spoil your day, right? You are going to be very unhappy about that, right? So the spoiler label and the spoiler target kind of, it assumes we want to stay in this position where we're just stealing enough to maybe cost someone the election. We're not running because we're trying to steal the election, cost someone the election. We're running to make changes. And at the end of the day, with a properly organized and funded and growing party, we're going to win elections, and that's spoiling the system, right? So third parties, we're here to spoil, and I don't think we should run away from it. I think we should really push that can you spoil something that's already rotten?
These are good lines. I gotta say, these are good lines.
Highly quotable.
I wanted to talk about and Chris, you're making a few great arguments that there is a limitation to just this one singular type of reform. I want to explore, okay, what are the good sides of that and what are the bad sides of that? And I think both of you can elaborate on this. So, Andrew, what are the good effects? We've already talked about like the voters themselves become more engaged, happier, more satisfied with the process. Their voices get to be heard in a multitude of more ways than before. Before it was check one box or don't check at all, right? Or stay home. But now they get to show their preference way more. But what else happens if ranked choice voting were to pass, and maybe specifically regarding the bill that we have going in the Senate right now?
Mm-hmm. So I guess, my take is ranked choice voting does in fact change the dynamics of the election beyond, it's not just the mechanics, right? And part of that was the, negative campaigning that you might see today. In places that use ranked choice voting, it just becomes a lot more civil. And so rather than, trashing your opponent, you're trying to run on an issues or it changes the dynamics of how we talk about politics and how we talk about an issue, right? Today, it's even the way we discuss, a political topic is polarized or black and white, which is nothing in reality really is. So, it's not, it was crazy to me in 2016 that the discussion was, do we build a wall on Mexico, wall or no wall? And that's not really how things work. It's where are, whatever you want to call it, walls or barriers, where are they currently existing? Is it worth it to build more? Is it worth it to take down existing barriers, right? It's a more nuanced discussion, and just the way framing ranked choice voting and having more choices out there and having the debate shifted from sort of candidates and personalities to topics can be a really big win. I'm not sure what the other part of the original question was, but I do see that, ranked choice voting, I think we already touched on some things with it ensures that there's a majority support for the eventual winner, or that they get a majority of, at least partial majority of people's votes. And so there's this incentive for the elected officials then to kind of appeal to the whole population or to a broader portion of the population. And then once they're in office, that tends to be how elected officials operate. And right now, if one party or each party kind of appeals to their base, they get into office, yes, they're pretty beholden to the people who elected them. And maybe that's, some people see that as a great thing, but it leads to very little legislation being accomplished.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask that because we were doing some research today, and we also looked at how getting ballot access currently, how that game works. And I do view it as a game. I think it is implicitly written to block out certain other candidates, certain other parties in particular, Green Party members, Libertarians, even PSL. And then how is that possibly changing if ranked choice voting in this particular bill were to pass?
So this particular bill doesn't directly address ballot access. However, it is written in a way where it makes it a little bit easier, and I'll explain how. So right now, in order to be an established candidate, I guess is the term, where you don't need nearly as many signatures to get on the ballot for the next election, there's a 5% threshold of votes that's needed for the party. With ranked choice voting, with the bill that we have introduced, the 1785 in the Senate, we would look at the first round voting to determine that threshold, which is really great because, if I want to get more candidates or more parties to be established, it's very easy for me to say, you know what, I'm going to vote for this party that maybe I do believe they have a chance, maybe not, but who cares? I'm voting for them because I want them to hit that threshold because we just need more parties on the ballot in general. And so it makes it a little bit easier. It's not, I will admit, it's not far enough. The ballot access laws in Illinois are notoriously bad. And so it doesn't solve everything, but it's the right way to write up the ranked choice voting bill.
And I'll pause us there for just a moment. Chris, you get a big chance to respond because I kind of gave Andrew 2 spoon-fed ones there. So please, I'll be giving you the floor shortly. But I wanted to show our beautiful faces once again and throw up some banners. Remind everyone, just in case they joined us after the start of the show, that this is the Illinois Green Party series. We air every Monday night at 8 p.m., except for next Monday because we'll be taking it off for Memorial Day. We're talking about Green Party issues. We're having on all sorts of interesting guests. If you guys know of any guests that you'd like to have come on the show in the future, please message us in the comments right now. Also, if you have any questions for our guests, we are airing these live. We did check. They are live on both Facebook and YouTube. And we might be able to get your question onto the show. We'd love to hear from you also. We do have a few people watching right now. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. And then I want to reiterate the guests that we have on. We have in the top left corner, Andrew Silva, Executive Director at FairVote Illinois. Full disclosure, I'm also part of FairVote Illinois, very involved. And then we have in the bottom left corner, we have Chris Blankenhorn, Secretary of Illinois Green Party. All right. And as I said, and I promised, we're going to give the floor to Chris here to elaborate on. And just to reiterate the questions, we were talking about the potential limitations of ranked choice voting. And we did talk about that a little bit earlier. And we were talking about, okay, but what's the power of ranked choice voting? Does it have upsides that are kind of knock-on effects? As the longer it's in effect, are there any benefits? So talking about the pros and the cons, if it were to pass, especially the Illinois version that's in the Senate right now, the bill, I mean. Chris, take it away. We got you on mute still, Chris. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would, if we're, the only way I could conceive doing the 5% threshold would be on that first vote. Anything else would be making us even more repressive. And RCV can do a lot of great things, but they're all dependent upon having choices. Right? Often RCV is talked about as though the choices will just be there. But that's not the case in a state like Illinois, right? In Illinois, what an RCV bill alone means is that you get to rank in almost every race a Republican and a Democrat. That's it. That's it, because we have some of the worst ballot access laws in the country. To run for president as a Democrat or a Republican, you got to collect 3,000 signatures. To run as a Green, a Libertarian, any other third party or independent, 25,000 in 90 days. And we have to double it So we have to get 50,000 signatures in 90 days, thereby exhausted. And you said this is a game. This is 100% a game, right? It is a bunch of hoops that are jumped through, and they're meant to lead to an opponent that, if they do get on the ballot, is exhausted, right? It is a Herculean task, even for a mainstream party. They're not collecting that number, right? They're turning in 3,000. And it would be a big task even for the major parties. And so when we're done, we're exhausted, but we're expected to turn around and campaign, right? And I would point out that in 2020, because of the pandemic, the Illinois Green Party and the Libertarian Party sued and were placed on the ballot based on our past success. Didn't break anything, right? We didn't break out. We didn't spoil the election. Like, nothing fundamentally changed based on actually letting us just be on the ballot, right? So ranked choice voting is a great idea, but it's dependent on some things that aren't guaranteed. I said my favorite. Can you have a favorite awful thing? But my favorite proof of this is a game. I actually just gave away my truck, my 28-year-old GMC Sierra, to someone who could put the work into it and let it be a reliable beater. And I've got a baby on the way, and it's not a reliable baby car. But that is the vehicle that carried our 53,000 petitions to the Board of Elections in 2016.
Oh, wow.
When you turn in petitions in Illinois, they must be bound in a single book.
Right.
53,000, over 5,000 pages, bound with baling wire up through legal holds. If it tears, it's invalid. If it falls apart, it's invalid. We put it in a banker box and we use ratchet straps to hold it together and put it in my truck, and I ratchet strapped it down and carried it in. Here's what is the most egregious part of the whole game in terms of just having fun, right? Is showing that it's a game to them. The first thing they do is take it apart and scan it. The first thing they require it to be turned in complete in a single book, and then they take that book apart immediately. But if it had come apart in the lobby while we were waiting for them, if it had come apart lifting it onto their desk, it'd be invalid, right? And so RCV is great. RCV is a really better system, but if we don't address the power structure that is in place, it's like what I always say to libertarians. Okay, cool. We'll try libertarianism. We're redistributing all the wealth, right? The first thing we do is we take all the wealth, we put it in a pile, and then we divvy it up equally. Every libertarian I know goes, "Whoa!" How can you claim your system works if you're not leveling the playing field before you implement it, right?
Interesting.
So it's the core. I am a big supporter of RCV, but it really is absolutely dependent, and all the positives and great things and successes that it can have are absolutely dependent on ballot access. Because if people, to run for U.S. House in my district as a Republican, it's about 750 signatures. As a Democrat, it's about 780 signatures. As a Green, Independent, or Libertarian, it's 15,000 from a largely rural district around Springfield, Illinois, right? So, and it's only half of Springfield, right? They gerrymandered it. They split half the town, and they went out and grabbed red areas, and that's why Rodney Davis is our rep. Even though it was drawn by the Democrats, they couldn't even gerrymander right. But, we've got to deal with those things. We've got to deal with gerrymandering. We've got to deal with the ballot access laws in order to kind of make way, clear the space for RCV to actually do what it's intended to do. Because, at least in Illinois, this law passes, I support it. I will publicly endorse it. I will, lobby for it. But I know it's not going to change my work at the end of the day, because I'm still going to be just struggling to even appear on that ballot and be ranked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if I may say real quick here, they got a Tom Violet who said that they only need 800 for governor in New Jersey and 100 for state offices. So you're right, Chris. It's really kind of an Illinois. I mean, I don't know about any other states, honestly, but I mean, Illinois is so rigged in so many different ways that those outrageous, audacious numbers for third-party ballot access compared to the two top parties makes sense to me, because I can see Illinois legislators doing that. It's unfortunate, but I expect Nazis to be racist. It's that kind of thing. So okay, that's all. That's all I had to say. I just want to make sure that the comments are being talked about as well.
I wanted to give Andrew a chance to talk about FairVote's plan to approach this. And where are the efforts going currently? What do we think the plans are in the immediate future for getting ranked choice voting and perhaps other related democracy issues? And then to kind of tweak that for Chris, what would be your dream version of like a coalitional or a, like you say omnibus, but I guess real quick, what would that look like, and how do we form perhaps a coalition around that? So Andrew, let's have you go first. Make sure you're unmuted there. Look, you look like you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, our focus for the organization has been on ranked choice voting, and it's been, we're pushing for it at all levels of government. The bill in the Senate, the SB 1785, was recently amended, which we're really happy about, to include primaries and the federal offices, U.S. Congress, Senate, and President. So really happy about that. We're also pushing for ranked choice voting at the municipal level. So, Chicago would be a great target. There's already the mayor of Chicago already has sort of an open, nonpartisan primary. It's where there's a lot of candidates all thrown together, and it would be great to use ranked choice voting in a setting like that. And other municipalities, Evanston is really prime for ranked choice voting. They have a supporter as the new mayor, and they're just a township that is pretty progressive in the sense of being open to trying reforms. And they just passed a reparations bill. They're open to trying things, seeing how it works, and they're a good target for that reason. And it's just great for the people of Evanston. So that's our primary focus at the moment. And part of that's just to streamline the operations of the organization. So by keeping it somewhat more simple, we could say, look, we're educating the public on what ranked choice voting is, how it works, and the benefits. As far as other reforms go, those are, I would love to hear what Chris has to suggest. I think we're open to, anything that's going to improve elections and improve the way we're represented by the government. And there are options beyond, in principle, of course, I would say we support ballot access. In principle, we may be open to a combination that Alaska's using of the open primaries, where the top 4 or 5 go forward, and then ranked choice voting, which would also alleviate some of the issues with ballot access, assuming that everyone could enter the primary equally. And so multi-member districts is something that, that'd be incredible. We're pushing for what we for ranked choice voting, and that we think it's a reform that could have quite an impact on its own, and it's implementable on its own, and kind of prove out what else is possible.
Yeah, but before Chris answers the next half, I wanted to highlight some knowledge that I have on it too, and that is that in the U.S. we do see it in 2 major states now. In Maine, we have ranked choice voting, kind of the standard issue one, if you will, for general elections. And then in Alaska, we have the open primary, and there's this top 4 version, I believe. That campaign has since switched to, I think, liking top 5 more, the version that you'd mentioned. And then I know that it's in major cities. Both Minnesota and California have competed for the most cities with ranked choice voting in them throughout the years, which is an interesting fact. I guess I assumed it from California. I hear about San Francisco a bunch, but it's also prevalent in Minnesota as well. So it's in 2 states, it's in major cities, and it's being used currently in New York City right now. So to pass this on to Chris. Chris, earlier you had mentioned earlier you mentioned Maine and how you don't believe that ranked choice voting there, that's going to lead to major success for the Green Party. And I'm a little disappointed in how their ballot access went as well for, I believe it was their Senate seats. And they had to register as independent, so they couldn't even show their party and be prideful of the party behind them. So I want to hear about, first your thoughts on Maine and what's faltering there, what's maybe possible there, and then I want to hear your thoughts on what does a coalition towards improving democracy look like in your eyes. Oh, sorry, you're on mute still. I got you. Or I thought I got you. No, you have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
So when you look at Maine, one, it was a choice. They chose to run as an independent campaign.
Okay.
And that was because it was much harder to run as a third party. Here in Illinois, we are an equal non-duopoly repressor. No matter third party, independent, something outside of that, dichotomy. If you are not a Republican or a Democrat, you face equal repression, right? So it's why in Illinois, I don't understand. Was it Sam McCann a few years ago that ran for a conservative party? But in Illinois, I don't see the benefit of running as an independent, right? Political parties are how you kind of build long-term power, right? A political party allows you to go past the election. It allows you to organize for elections across time. As an independent candidate, your campaign ends, right? And when you stop running, it's all over. You've passed nothing on, right? Even if you got elected, you passed nothing on. Your person, whoever you're crowning is your, I assume that we're still doing, normal American bequeathing of seats and things like that, because we're not, we haven't even gotten to the Dreamlist, so I'll stay in reality. When you run as an independent in Illinois, even if you get elected, when you stop, no one can run in your place. They have to collect the full third-party signature. So in Illinois, it's kind of encouraged to run as a party, to try to, and I don't think this was thought out. I don't think they were like, we'll help them grow by being mean to them. I think it was I think it was a side effect that they didn't expect, because they wanted to keep independents out too. But it's almost encouraged to run as a party, because you might be able to pass something. You might be able to pass recognized status in your district off to the next candidate or to yourself next time. And in Maine, it's the opposite. They repress, and a lot of states do this. It's lower numbers to get on the ballot as an independent. For presidential, it's 40-something thousand in Ohio for party affiliation. It's 5,000 for independent, right? Okay. So you're encouraged to not get the party affiliation, to not build a permanent structure and a lasting institution that could actually affect real change. So that is one thing in Maine, that could be changed. They like Illinois need to deal with ballot access.
Yeah.
So that you can run as a Green. So you can run. And they're the main independent Green Party. They're a combination of parties. Like Massachusetts is the Green Rainbow Party. DC is the DC Statehood Green Party.
Just to make sure we have enough time for maybe a last couple of questions, what is your view of a coalition look like, real quick? And then I want to offer time for you guys to have pluggables, and if David has a rapid fire one. So what's the coalition look like in your mind? What's the most effective version of that? Towards democracy reform overall?
I'm going to shift it for a dream list. So I'm going to alter your question to a dream list, because I don't think you start, a coalition implies that I'm starting from a moderated position, because I'm agreeing with other people's, veto of some of my ideas. So I'm going to start with it. I'll just do a dream.
Please, yes, that's much
obviously, we should abolish the electoral college, ranked choice vote for president, When you've got those single seat races that have to be single seat, ranked choice voting is, the best way to go. We need to, obviously, we need to address ballot access, which is voter suppression. We also need to address, which is party suppression. We also need to address voter suppression. The Republicans are going out like all over the country and going after voters, and they've been doing it over a long time. And you don't, HR1 kind of deals with it, but it also really throws a lot of money into the system as well that I'm not going to get into. If that passes, it's doomsday. We're going to see $5 billion elections instead of $1 billion per candidate elections. So we need to make voting fair. We need a standard of that ballot access that's true across the country. From a data standpoint, all American presidential elections are illegitimate because from a data perspective, the samples are completely different. They're being taken in different ways. The votes aren't comparable. You can't compare California's vote with Alabama's vote, with Illinois' vote, because the vote actually was different. Like how they did it, how they decided it. We need a federal, standard on that, and it needs to be fair. We need. So
I'll have to limit you to two more points here.
Huh?
I want to limit you to 2 more points. I want to make sure we have time for the end here.
Yeah, my last two are my last two.
Okay.
So, like I said, for president, ranked choice voting is great. We can only have one president, right? And every, when people mention multi-member districts, it's kind of treated like a dream. We had it here in Illinois. We used to have multi-member districts in Illinois. It was Pat Quinn that got rid of it, right? It was Pat Quinn. It's that recent. Maryland has them. Every one of their, I believe it's their House of Delegates, 3 people elected out of every district, right? In, I believe it was 2018, Greens were 4th and 5th. We're almost there, right? And if we really want to change it, we need proportional representation. First past the vote is not, or first past the post majority rule is not democracy. It's a dictatorship of the 51%, right? If we want a representative system, we can't just erase 49% of the voices. We need proportional representation. And to get that in our system, it will take multi-member districts, right? And unicameral multi-member districts is a really interesting idea. But we used to have it. Maryland has it. These aren't crazy things. But if we can get, fair ballot access, some real campaign finance reform and publicly funded elections, deal with voter suppression, which is widespread, and then get multi-member districts for proportional representation, we can change the power structure of this country, right? We can change. It's not just changing how we vote; it's changing the literal power structure. It democratizes things. It shifts it in a way that we can actually have a chance of challenging corporate and special interests and wealth. So, that's the dream. Now we just got to fight for it.
This is great. I've really enjoyed this conversation with y'all, talking about democratizing systems, how to optimize them, how to get the people's voice out there and actually have I like to say, reflective, responsive democracy. I really appreciate y'all's time. We're going to start with Andrew and then go to Chris. And then we might go maybe a couple minutes over. We try not to, but we might have one last question from David. He might be itching for something. But Andrew, got any pluggables for us? What should we do after this if we're interested in FairVote?
Yeah, so I'm going to touch on a point that Chris brought up really quick too with the multi-member districts, and that FairVote National, one of their big objectives is the Fair Representation Act, which was introduced last Congress. It hasn't been reintroduced yet, but it would be multi-member districts for the House of Representatives in every state, using multi-member districts, and then using ranked choice voting within those, which you could do. And we could go through how that would work. Yeah. So I guess I'm plugging that, but I'm going to plug FairVote Illinois, which is why I'm here. The main thing anyone could do is go to our website, fairvoteillinois.org, and go ahead and just click to sign up. And what that does is it shows that you're supporting ranked choice voting, We'll put you on our mailing list as well, which keeps you informed of all of our volunteer activities, ways you could get involved. We're going to be doing lots of outreach events at farmers markets, and especially if it's safe and warm and everything. We really want to get out there and start spreading the word. And we really think we win ranked choice voting in Illinois by first building awareness and then passing it once we have enough public support.
All right, and Chris, any pluggables that you have?
Yeah, as Illinois Green Party Secretary, go to ilgp.org. Join a people-powered movement. A lot of people are waiting for a third party, but we've got to build it, and we need your help doing it. Right? If you want another choice, you got to put in the work. We're going up against billions of dollars. We're going up against rigged systems, and we are not trying to replicate what a corporate party. We're trying to build a true grassroots party, a true democratic party. So go to ilgp.org, see what we got to say, hit up that membership page, pay some dues, help us pay our staff, help us pay for StreamYard, help us organize. I also want to give a shout out to the Green Socialist Organizing Project. My title here was Illinois Green Party Secretary, but I was also the social media and tech director for the Howie Hawkins campaign. So coming out of the campaign, we're launching the Green Socialist Organizing Project. We've got weekly streams on Tuesday nights at 8 Central or at 8 Eastern with him and Angela. Oh, it's not Tuesdays anymore. We just moved it. Sorry, Saturdays at 3 Eastern. But go to greensocialist.net. You can sign up. We promote. We're working very, very closely with Rank the Vote. So if you're watching this and you're not in Illinois, go to our website. We've got a list of every statewide meeting in the country for ranked choice voting that Rank the Vote has told us. I don't have my June update yet, so it's mainly May at this point still. But I'll now that I've been on this and thought about it, I'll hassle Howie about getting an update. So greensocialist.net, help us, build the Green Party nationally, do education work, lay the foundation to elect thousands of Greens across the country, into the 2020s. We're not talking 2022. We're not talking 2024. We're talking about long-term building of a mass membership party.
And y'all use ranked choice voting, right? So
yep. Green Party has used ranked choice voting for decades. I have won many a ranked choice voting elections, and I have lost them.
David, if you had any last thoughts, I'm sorry I muscled you out of this one day.
No, that's okay. This is your day. I have, as usual, at the end of every single show, I have 1,000 more questions. But we're over by 3 minutes, and I actually have to go myself. So we're just going to have to do this again, either through this venue or this medium or some other one. Because of I don't know. So yes, I have a lot more questions. I want to thank you all, Chris Blankenhorn and Andrew Silva. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a great conversation. Learned a lot. Folks, ranked choice voting is an extremely important issue that we need to attend to locally, countywide, statewide, and nationally, for sure. It is the better of the two options, the one we have now and the ranked choice voting option. Clearly, if you want your vote to count, ranked choice voting is the only way to go. And it would also, like Chris said, it could very well change the power structure of our political dynamics as it is right now, and that's extremely important. That's all I have to say, Chris. Or Calvin, you want to say any last things?
No. I think this was great. Thank you again for coming on. I love the discussion. I love that we touched on many topics, and hopefully we can have you all on again.
All right, sounds good. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Green Party Series of Illinois. Till next time, be good, be green.